deal with airplane peanuts.
Just yesterday, Chappelle's show got canceled.
Yep.
In Minneapolis.
Yep.
And something happened where
First
these
Ave.
people decided that Chappelle is problematic or transphobic or what have you. And so the venue, at the last minute, like a couple of hours before the show, canceled his performance.
Yeah.
And he had to move it to the Varsity Theater.
Yeah.
And there was protests and trans activists protesting outside a sold-out Chappelle show in Minneapolis. So let's play it and hear what they have to say. Oh, we have to
Trans also human rights, dumbass.
We're leftists. We know that shit.
Queer phobes go home.
Yeah, we do.
Today's Monday, July 25th, and pale hairy bitches are still obsessed with Dave Chappelle. Welcome back to the Joke World Comedy Update. Every single Monday, bring you the news that you need to know in the comedy world. Whether it be new specials, new guest appearances on podcasts, or anything happening with your favorite comedians, you can find it all here on Joke World's YouTube channel. So please consider subscribing to Joke World right now and downloading this episode on Spotify to support the show. So like Joe Rogan and Andrew Schulz were talking about last week on the Joe Rogan Experience, basically Dave Chappelle had a show in Minneapolis last week, sold out show at the First Ave Theater, and there were a few protesters outside the show, and it ended up being canceled and moved to a different theater across the street. And one thing that's really funny about this that I think is getting overlooked is that the theater that canceled the original show, the First Ave Theater, released an apology afterwards, not to Dave Chappelle, but to the protesters. This is what they said. "We know we must hold ourselves to the highest standards, and we know we let you down. We are not just a black box with people in it, and we understand that the First Ave is not just a room, but meaningful beyond our walls." First of all, calm down, First Ave Theater. You are just a room. You literally are a black box with seats in it that people go to watch shows. Let's get that out of the way. Also, that is insane that they apologized to the protesters for booking Dave Chappelle, and the reasoning was they have to hold themselves to the highest standards, as if Dave Chappelle is not one of the greatest public speakers, not only of our generation, of maybe human history, but they have to hold themselves to a higher standard at the First Ave Theater, because it's more than just a room with black walls. Who else is alive that they could book that's a higher standard than Dave Chappelle? What else? Like, whatever. And this whole Dave Chappelle versus the angry mob story is kind of worn out for me. I'm sick of it. I'm over it. The same thing happens every single time. He releases a special. Millions of people love it. They get joy and happiness and laughter out of it. And then a few hundred people get super angry and cry and bitch and moan. And they make all this big stink. And then everyone who doesn't know and doesn't watch the special, they start piling on just to join in the movement. And the special gets bigger. More people want to go watch it. Dave Chappelle gets bigger. He sells more tickets. Then he goes and sells out a theater. 25 dorks show up with their signs bullying people for going to the show. It makes big news. Dave Chappelle gets bigger. It's the same thing every single time. I mean, I wish they would just kiss and make up. They're so stupid, these protesters. The anti-Dave Chappelle people are so dumb that they don't even realize every single thing that they've done so far has escalated Dave Chappelle.
You said one of your buddies was there?
Yeah, one of my buddies went. So they moved it to this other theater, and then the protesters went to the other venue and were kind of like, I don't know, for lack of a better term, like harassing the people that were going to go to the actual show. And my buddy went there, and they were trying to fight him.
Oh my God. A lot of hostility out here.
But it's not a lot of people that are hostile. It's a small amount.
Yeah.
It seems like there's like, if you're watching this, it seems like there's probably like 12 or 4, well, I don't know. It's hard to see the...
Who knows?
Yeah. But the thing about Chappelle's special that drives me crazy is that people don't know the full story, and they protest and they get crazy and they have a narrative that they've either read or they've seen, and then they just adopt that narrative and they run with it. And the narrative is that his special was transphobic.
Right.
So, but that special was not transphobic at all. It's essentially a love letter to a friend who committed suicide.
I also just want to say you are a loser if you're going to protest people and heckle people that are going to a comedy show. Just because they're happy and have fun and have things to do in their life and their brains are developed enough to be able to take a joke and not get furious and melt, you're a loser. You're a dork if you go protest someone for going into a comedy show. But also, Dave Chappelle made a surprise appearance at Madison Square Garden on Saturday. After all this happened, he joined Chris Rock and Kevin Hart on stage. He snuck onto the stage and told them, the audience, had to sneak my way in here, and despite what you may have read about me in the news, I'm okay, and I appreciate the support. So Dave Chappelle lives on. I'll see you in another few months when this story completely recycles itself and the same thing happens. Netflix came out with a new video last week called The Hall, in which George Carlin, Joan Rivers, Robin Williams, and Richard Pryor are introduced into a Comedy Hall of Fame. What is a Comedy Hall of Fame, you might be asking yourself? That's a good question. Apparently, this is the first class of comedians to be introduced into the Comedy Hall of Fame, which is located at a place called the National Comedy Center in Jamestown, New York. So they're opening up this Comedy Hall of Fame at this comedy center that was built in 2018, and the class of 2022 is Joan Rivers, Robin Williams, Richard Pryor, and George Carlin, who all four are dead. I don't know if that's a requirement. It seems a little strange to have a Hall of Fame for something that's so subjective. Like, is sketch comedy going to be part of it? Is it just stand-up? Is it comedy movies? Like, what are the rules to this? Do you have to be dead? Like, actually, who gets to vote? According to Pete Davidson, who opened this show, nominees for the Hall of Fame were voted on by a board of agents, board members, club owners, and influential members of the comedy community. So that doesn't answer any of our questions. I will say, regardless of what you might think about the starting of this Comedy Hall of Fame, the video itself is definitely worth the watch. Each Hall of Famer was introduced by a modern comedian, a modern legend, basically. So the presenters were Jon Stewart, John Mulaney, Chelsea Handler, and Dave Chappelle. And then after their presentation, that they say some words about each inductee. Then there's a montage of some of the funniest moments from their stand-up, from their careers. And it's just, I had a good time watching the montages. I learned a few things about these guys' careers, and I had a good time watching the presentations too.
Being a comedian is not a psychiatric condition. Are many of us also very fucked up, myself included? Yes, but whatever. There are depressed people who don't even have the decency to be great comedians. Why don't you pick on them for a change?
Jeff Ross also did an in memoriam section featuring Bob Saget, Louis Armstrong, Norm Macdonald, and Gilbert Gottfried. That was also good too. He said those are all 4 future Hall of Famers. So now it's just like, well, why didn't you just wait to honor them when they're inducted if this is going to be an ongoing thing? I don't even know. You know what is fishy about the whole thing is it was filmed during the Netflix is a Joke Festival, which is when everything that's been out on Netflix that they've put out, every stand-up comedian related thing that Netflix has put out in the last, since they filmed this in May, has been just recycled stuff they filmed at the Netflix is a Joke Festival. So is this going to be an ongoing thing? Is there a Comedy Hall of Fame now? I don't know. I guess we'll see. But congrats to the 4 nominees. The guest list is where we go through comedians' appearances on podcasts last week to make sure you don't miss any of your favorites. So to start off, Your Mom's House had on Andrew Schulz. The Joe Rogan Experience also had on Andrew Schulz. Along with The Tim Dillon Show, Good For You, Pardon My Take, KFC Radio, BFFs, No Jumper, and Bad Friends.
We haven't spoken since.
Since what?
Since your whole thing. Since you're free.
Because she is the niece.
He doesn't give a fuck.
So we got.
Are you a spy? Are
yeah,
you
she's
kept around?
she's a fucking.
No, I'm not.
You can't get away. But what's wrong with you? You keep inviting her behind enemy lines.
I know, dude. That's
Get her out of here.
I know. I was thinking maybe she shouldn't be here.
But don't think, do.
I know, but think
it took you 15 years to get out of that relationship.
I know.
Yeah, but you know what? This is his tactic.
What is it?
He keeps the enemies close.
So he can lose?
You don't know his plan.
What is his plan?
He doesn't want to lose some. He wants to lose
Korean,
all of it.
by the way?
Huh?
So Korean?
Yeah.
Just keep him up north. Like, have him be our neighbors.
Whiskey Ginger had on Caitlin Olsen, who plays Sweet D in Always Sunny. That was a great episode. Joke World, our podcast, we interviewed Fahim Anwar last week. Bobby Lee was on The Honeydew with Ryan Sickler. They talked about the breakup, things moving forward, some inside details there. This past weekend had on Nikki Glazer. Tiger Belly was just Bobby Lee, no Kalila, talking with Joe DeRosa. And Two Bears, One Cave was Bert and Tom and Bert. Stand-up specials that came out last week, you had Andrew Schulz break the internet, dude. He went on every podcast. He had The Rock tweeting about it, every celebrity watching his pay-per-view show. He said he made 3 times the money so far, but you can still buy that special on his website right now, so go check it out if you haven't. It's awesome. It's worth it. You still have Bill Burr live at the Red Rocks on Netflix, and The Hall, which we talked about, honoring the Comedy Hall of Famers. That's it for this week's Joke World Comedy Update. I'll see you again next Monday with some more comedy news. In the meantime, please subscribe, like this video, turn on the post notifications, all that stupid YouTube shit that everyone asks you to do. Just do it this time, man. It would mean a lot. Please do it.